We're live. Great. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It's wonderful to be online live again with you again. And today we've got Annie from Sincerely Yours, Annie, and we're going to be discussing the different levels of special needs. So just to remind everybody, we are doing a live giveaway at the end of this video. So you can join us either in the comments to share your thoughts, ask questions, or you can click on the link in the video description and you can join us live. You will come up below the video and I will have to put you in. So I'll ask you if you're ready. And then you can win a 250 Rand Takealot voucher. Awesome. So Annie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my full name is actually Anastasia, but everybody refers to me as Annie because of my blog. And I'm a mom of 3, a stay-at-home mom. I've got 2 boys and a younger daughter. The 2 boys are finally at school, so some peace and quiet at home finally. I'm a blogger, as obviously previously mentioned, and I'm an avid reader when I get time. I like to bake, so most of the time flops, but we're getting there. And yes, I have a special needs child, which is obviously the reason why I'm talking to you guys today. And I just wanted to bring up some attention on certain points and discussions that come along with special needs and perspectives and views and opinions that go around it.
Awesome, fantastic. And then I forgot that we're actually streaming to Annie's page as well. So yeah, if you guys are looking at this video thinking, who the hell is that? My name is Lynne Huysamen. I'm also a blogger and I blog on my website, Kaboutjie.com. And yeah, I've got 2 children and a girl and a boy. And I blog about a wide variety of things, mostly parenting, but also mental health because I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict and I've got bipolar. So, and then on the baking, Annie, I love baking and I'm also not always very successful. I've got some things that come out really good, some things that are not so lekker. But next week, my guest is Grace Stevens. Do you know Grace Stevens?
No.
She's actually like a celebrity, like a proper celebrity. She's on the Espresso show. And yeah, so she does baking stuff on the Espresso show. She's so fantastic. She's like so well put together. She's like amazing. Anyway, so we'll be talking about I don't think I've actually got the topic quite refined yet, but it's like baking, kids baking and parties and stuff like that. So that's going to be really cool. She's going to share some tips. Yeah, so I'm quite excited about that.
Yes.
Cool. We've got some people that are here already. We've got Nadine that can't wait to hear what she's got to say about special needs. Sadiqa and her 8-year-old's got Down syndrome. Okay. And we've got a couple of other ladies. Oh, Sadiqa saying hi. Oops, where you gone? Jezebel saying good morning. We've got Leonora. Good morning. Zavashni. Rina. Oh, there's lots of ladies here today. Hi, ladies. Angelique. Awesome. Okay, and we've got Theshni that has told me in private chat that her son is 13, but she hasn't taken him for assessment. But the nurses at the clinic think that he might have autism. So he's going to go for an assessment in March. Theshni, if you are on the video, below. You can connect your mic and your video and you can come up and join us and, discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. But your comment has come up in a private chat on the video. So, yeah. And we've also got Shireen. Awesome. Wow. This is like, yeah, definitely something that's interesting to a lot of parents. So the first thing, what I would love to know, Annie, is just a little bit about your son's special needs, because obviously we're going to be talking about different levels. But, yeah, I'd love to know about your son and what you're experiencing.
So my oldest son is turning 9 this year. And in 2017, he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Now, for those that haven't maybe heard the term, what it is a neurodevelopmental disorder that is characterized with difficulties with social interactions as well as nonverbal communication. So to give you an example of that is social interactions, they won't pick up on social cues. how to interact with emotions, how to understand emotions, as well as to respond in the appropriate manner. With nonverbal, it would be not understanding body language, not understanding facial expressions, and as well as they not interpreting the emotions, even though they're not being expressed physically, verbally, but physically they won't be able to understand what that person is showing, and then they won't be able to respond in that same way. And he was diagnosed in 2017 at the age of 5 already, which is actually a blessing in disguise, because we were able to pick it up very early and get the necessary therapy that he needed to start working on coping mechanisms and adjusting to social situations and developing him, even though it's on his own pace, but developing him to get him to the age appropriate milestones and school readiness and stuff like that. Before we got to the diagnosis in 2016, we went to see a different therapist, and she classified him completely autistic. So in that sense, that would be your low functioning autism, which is the complete opposite side of the scale to Asperger's. And when we received the reports, the things that she assessed him on were the complete opposite of what he could actually do. So she said he was nonverbal, where he did speak in front of her. He fell into the pool at her premises. She forgot to, close it properly. And in the report, she wrote that he was more worried about the fact that his clothes were wet instead of the fact that he nearly drowned. And she didn't see the child that we had at home, who was afraid for 2 months to go near a bath of water. So that fear was there, but she didn't see that. So she wasn't able to put that into his report. So she completely disregarded anything that we gave her with information and situations that we've already experienced with him. And she said we need to immediately move him to a special needs school because he won't be able to cope anywhere else. And I don't know if I should say it's a mother's instinct or just that sixth sense that went off, but I didn't agree with it. And we didn't put him into a special needs school at all. We decided to get a second opinion. And it's actually something that I would recommend to any parent that goes through any diagnosis, just to have that confirmation and to make sure that what they're diagnosed with is truly correct. So we moved him to a different school because we picked up on a lot of difficulties that they were experiencing. Instead of seeing the problems that he was having, they put him into a box of he misbehaves, he doesn't listen. Instead of actually trying to see why, they just isolated him completely. So they didn't let him play with friends. He was being bitten by a child at school. They didn't even acknowledge it. He would come home and I would see the bite marks on his back and on his arms. And the school didn't even inform me of this. They didn't even know about this. That just showed me how detached actually they became with him, and didn't worry about further investigating what is the main reason of his behavior. So we moved him to his old school, and that teacher gave him a bit of extra attention, and she picked up on a couple of things. For instance, he had low muscle tone, so he wouldn't sit properly. He would sit with his legs in a W shape because his back couldn't support sitting with his legs crossed. He would struggle to hold a pencil because of the underdeveloped muscles. And it's stuff that was never picked up at the previous school. And she referred us to an occupational therapist, who then started therapy with developing his muscles and working on his grip and sitting. And then she was the one that informed us that he has a very unstable emotional response. So he would have severe emotional outbursts, and you get your tantrums, which is a very standard thing, terrible twos and stuff like that. And his were very severe in the sense that he would just drop down and he would scream and kick. It was very, I wouldn't say violent. He wouldn't hurt himself, but the way that he physically responded that he could, hurt someone or hurt himself in the process. So after that, we went to see a play therapist who was the one that then diagnosed him with Asperger's. Now, Asperger's is not a term that you will find anymore used to diagnose. It was disregarded in 2013 because it falls onto the autism spectrum. So Asperger's is now known as high functioning autism because individuals can still function normally in certain situations, but there are some aspects that they do struggle with. He also has a speech delay, which we picked up on with the play therapist, and she then referred us to a speech therapist. So we've had now 3 different types of therapies, which in some sense interlink, but then they also focus on his specific needs. Since then, we've already stopped with the occupational therapy. We haven't had the need for it anymore. He's developed his muscles. He climbs on trees, even though how many times we say no. He climbs on jungle gyms. He rides a bike without any problems. So we felt that it wasn't necessary anymore to do the occupational therapy. With the speech therapy, we came across that there was a lot of repetition, that they repeated a lot of activities that weren't anymore necessary. So we stopped with that last year as well. And also just to give him a chance to go on without this and actually see what he can do without that extra attention. So far it's been good. So far we haven't seen a need to go back to speech therapy. He still sees his play therapist every few months, where we started off with just once a month. It's now moved to once every 4 months. So that also shows, again, progress with his development. And so, yeah, that's basically the scope of it. So I just want to check that I haven't missed something. Yes, when we saw that he's struggling to keep up in preschool, it was unfair to leave him there because the teacher couldn't wait for him to catch up. At the same time, also then let the other kids have to wait. It was unfair to expect them to lower the pace, not pick it up, but lower the pace because of the other kids. So we decided to homeschool him, where I could give the one-on-one attention that he would need and give him the proper focus on all the things that he struggles with. And in 2019, we enrolled him into a mainstream school, even though the speech therapist was against it. She advised against it because they wouldn't be able to accommodate his needs. And we decided to take a chance and see what can happen with it. And the remedial school that I went to see, which remedial school is pretty much a special needs school, if you want to classify it like that. And the principal, I went to meet up with her, and I just didn't get a feel that this is where he would fit in. I just the words that she used with inadequate system, number, it felt like my child would not be an individual. And that really put me off sending him to a special needs school. Obviously, if he struggled with a mainstream school, then our only other option would be a special needs school or homeschooling, continuing homeschooling. But so far, now he's in grade 2 now. He's a year behind because we did grade R 2 years in a row just to give him that time to catch up with his speech, because he wouldn't have been able to cope with the grade 1 pressure. So we took that time to just give him a boost and, develop a more developing time with his speech and everything. So he is a year behind, but it's something that till today I don't regret doing, because if you see the program,
Oh, yes, I forgot to say that Annie's child is at home and might be popping into the video. And she's putting a mask on her child because she doesn't want her child to be seen by everybody. So if you see a strange bouncing child with a mask on, there you go. No control. So I'm just going to mute Annie over here so she can talk to her child. Just to, share a little bit from my side. I've had, well, not me, my sister. When we grew up as a baby, she had problems with her ears. They would constantly, she would have ear infections, and her ears would get more and more sore, and the pressure would build up and build up. And then eventually the pain would get really excruciating, and then her eardrums would burst, and then all the pus and stuff would come out, but the pain would be gone. But her hearing got more and more damaged over time as this happened. And immediately after her eardrums bursting, her hearing would be incredibly bad. And then what would happen is the teachers at school would speak to my mother and say, your child's not listening, she's being distracted, she's doing other things in class. And my mom was trying to say, she's not naughty, she cannot hear you. You need to get her attention and make sure she's looking at you. She cannot be seated at the back of the classroom. She needs to be seated at the front of the classroom where you can, actually see, is she paying attention? Does she know that you're even speaking? So, we haven't, my sister's not special needs, but she has had a bit of a problem with her hearing. So we've had a little bit of insight into, the struggles at school. So here's Annie back again. I'm going to put her microphone on. Hi.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem. I was just telling everybody about my sister and her hearing at school in the gap, and just a bit of the struggles that we've had that. So we've got a lot of people. Oh my gosh! If anybody thinks that I'm not listening or I'm distracted as well, I am distracted because I'm watching the comments coming. I'm seeing everybody jump up on video, and I've got to manage the banners and everything. And I'm just hearing beep, beep, beeps as people are joining. So let's have a look here. We've got a number of people that have joined us on video. We've got Feshni. Your camera's not connected and your mic's not connected. If you want to come jump on, then just connect everything and give me a thumbs up. Robin, do you want to join? I can only see your eyebrows. If you do want to join, just lift your thumb up like this by your eyebrows, like this. If you don't, just give me a thumbs down. I've got Sandiso. Would you like to join? Sandiso? I can't hear you because you're not in the stream. I'm going to put you up. Okay. Hi, Sandiso. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Do you want to ask a question or share about your experiences?
I was just listening to the convo because I've never had someone with special needs, so I was just gonna take on what you'll be speaking and listen to it. Maybe one day if I come across it, then I'll know what to do.
Yeah,
That's actually
our next topic that we're actually going to talk about as soon as we've kind of engaged a bit with one of the guests is basically what the public needs to know about special needs and special needs parenting, because it's not just the parents that are responsible for those children. It's all of us, everybody. And I had an experience that I'm going to share about in that topic.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm going to pop you down.
Okay, yes, please pop it out. Bye.
Bye. Let's see, who else have we got? We've got Jessica, we've got Laura, and we've got Robin Moss. Robin, you want to join us? Give me a thumbs up. No thumbs up. You can always give me a thumbs down if you don't want to join. And we've got Robin Barters. Robin, would you like to join? Give me a thumbs up. I'm looking at the top of your head. Robin, do you want to join us? No. Okay, no problem. And we've got Alexander. Are you wanting to join us live on video? Give me a thumbs up.
I'll be 1 second again. Sorry.
No problem. Hi, Robin. How are you doing? Oh, okay. Robin's gone. Okay, cool. Right. I'm going to go and just have a look at a couple of the questions that we've got here. And Leonora, she's telling us that getting an early diagnosis is really good, as it helps to understand your child better and helps with coping and understanding. I've written a few articles on autism, on ADSL, ADHD. I'm getting a bit distracted now because I've got a bit of an echo in my video. Yeah, and part of it is that the earlier you get the diagnosis, the earlier you can get your child a bit of treatment. And something else that I want to actually bring up with Annie, and if you're just looking at Leonora has just left this comment. And one of the things that I've written about a few times on, I've written a couple of articles on ADHD and on autism, and it's the importance of, getting an early diagnosis. And something I've noticed on, I don't know why my headphones I'm getting quite an echo here. So it's that a lot of people have commented on my blog that they don't want to take their child for the diagnosis. They're scared of what it's going to reveal. And the one mom said that she wants to take her child for an assessment, but her husband doesn't want to. He's like, no, there's nothing wrong with our child, we're not going. What have you got to share on that topic?
Well, I think the biggest part where people, parents don't want to get a diagnosis is because it opens up a whole new world. Things that we might not have experience with or understanding of. And it's that fear that keeps us back. But what we need to realize is that by not doing it, we're actually delaying the process of helping your child. Because as soon as you have that diagnosis, you can get the resources and the correct therapy and the correct treatments if needed to start the journey and actually help your child and help them develop. And denial is also a very big aspect when you do get a diagnosis that, there is nothing wrong with my child. Even though, there are signs and symptoms, there's nothing wrong. And I feel that the longer you delay it, the more problematic it can get, because while they're still young, like we caught it, when he was 5, so it was still in the foundation years. So we were able to, bring in coping mechanisms before he went to school, and work on his low muscle tone, and stuff like that. Where a child that is older already used to a certain system in school, could have difficulties to actually change that and to adapt to a new method or a new technique. And that can actually, again, delay progress, because the older the child is, the more set certain ways are. Then by starting early and getting the diagnosis done and working from it there, kind of makes, I don't want to say it makes it easier, but it takes away the difficulties that you could experience later by fixing and changing things now. So I know that it is scary, if your school, your teacher, or whoever tells you that there's something wrong with this or there's something wrong with that, and you don't want to accept it, but you're causing more damage by not accepting it and not taking it further, than just doing it and making your child's life easier, as well as, in some sense, the school, if they go to a mainstream school, because you already equip them with the correct approaches and reactions and responses, than leaving it for later, where they can be more, I don't want to say judging, but more people pushing them away, if that makes sense, to the question.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And something that I've read about, and something that I believe to be true, is that, the earlier you diagnose it and the earlier you face up to it, the sooner you can get the help that you need and your child needs, and the better the outcome. Exactly like you explained. And the young children that are in the developmental stages, if you catch it then, you can make such a big difference to the outcome. But if you leave it later, like you say, you could be setting yourself up for a lot more challenges for your child in later years.
Very true.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of like touching on what you said about trusting yourself. that my oldest sister, one of the teachers said to her that her child might have ADHD, but it's because he's a highly intelligent, and then he buggers around in class because he finished early or because he finds the work boring. Are you struggling to hear?
No, I hear everything fine.
Okay, so it's just my headphones that's doing a bit of an echo. Okay, that's perfect. So, but she said she understood immediately that, yes, he was being disruptive in class and maybe he was showing signs of ADHD, but she knew her son well enough to know that he was just, being a little bit disruptive and that he needed more stimulation to keep his mind busy and to keep himself active. So I think, there's the one side of, let's not be in denial, but there's the other side that I think a lot of times teachers may see something and assume it's when it's not. So it's a bit of a situation.
Judge, coming from experience, teachers are not specialists in this field, so they cannot give you a diagnosis. They can bring up the points of this and this and this and this might be a concern, but they cannot outright tell you your child has this or your child has that, because they are not trained in that field to be able to diagnose this. Now that is why we have therapists, that is why we have specialists in these fields that work with this, that have the intensive training to be able to come to that conclusion. So, for me, I wouldn't find it appropriate if someone just says, okay, this is what your child has, but they have no point of reference to be able to make that comment. And it comes with growing a thick skin as well, with a child with special needs, as well as taking things in, but you need to have a wall, because you're going to get from a lot of teachers and a lot of people that are going to think, okay, this isn't right, it must be this, it must be that, but they're not qualified to be able to give you that. And the thing is, if you open yourself up to that, you are going to find yourself with a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, because you're taking on someone else's comment, but you're not thinking to take it further and see, what it could be. Is it really that, or is it something else? But by listening to people that do not have experience in the field or have the training in the field, you're actually opening yourself up to a lot more, not judging, but a lot more doors to closing up from the truth if there is a problem, or even actually going into more denial because there is nothing wrong. They're just seeing things, instead of going to a professional and saying, what, I have these concerns. This is what the teacher has told me, but I wouldn't say this is what she suspects, because I had a therapist that actually told me, listen, who's a professional here? How can they say that? And, don't go on what the teachers say. Of course, if it's a special needs school, which wouldn't make sense, obviously, if your child isn't diagnosed to be there. But there are teachers that have worked in special needs schools, so they know what symptoms to look out for, but they still cannot give you a diagnosis. That is why they refer you to a specialist. So, great, maybe it's the approach to help, but using specific terms is not the way to go about it. List your concerns and refer them, say maybe you should go see a professional or a specialist, and that's where you draw the line. When you as a parent have the diagnosis, then you can approach them and say, this is what the results are, let's work with this. That is the right approach.
Awesome, I totally agree. And I think that's going to take us kind of into our next topic about what do you think the general public needs to learn about special needs and special needs parenting?
So let's start off with seeing what special needs there are. Now, there are up to 13 categories, if you now break special needs down, of different types of special needs. Now, the 4 major categories of special needs found in children are sensory impaired, which is hearing loss or partial hearing loss, being being blind or partially blind. Then you have your second one, which is behavioral/emotional, and that includes ADHD, anxiety, depression. Just to give some examples of what goes into these, what disorders go into these categories. You have your developmental ones, which is your autism, your processing disorders, dyslexia, and then you've got your physical, which could be obviously a deformity or paralysis, as well as epilepsy goes into this, and chronic asthma. Now, each of these categories, whatever disorders go into them, have different levels of severity. So you have like your autism spectrum, you've got your high functioning autism, actually, I need to do this. High functioning autism, and then you've got the whole scale of different symptoms where it then goes down to your low functioning autism. And I think that when people think, I'm going to focus on autism and Asperger's, because that's the point of reference that I have. But when people hear autism, they immediately have this vision of a child that is, completely nonverbal. They can't do anything for themselves. They have shaking fits and, violent outbursts. But no one thinks about the other side of autism, where you have mild symptoms and moderate symptoms, but there are still struggles that go with that. Even though they might not be as severe as the other side of the spectrum, there are still struggles that children as well as the parents need to go through. So the other thing to consider as well is that these four categories can interlink with each other. So you could have a child that has dyslexia and suffers from anxiety. You can have a child that has autism as well as has sensory processing disorder. So it's not just specific to one category. There's a lot of aspects that go in, with each other. I mean, it's the same as someone that is partially blind can have depression. So there are so many levels that you can actually, when you go into the detail of how many links there are and how many different categories there are. And I think that's something that is not very out there and spoken about. The more non-visual special needs, if I want to classify it like that, that it's important to understand that it's a huge dynamic. And each category has a different level of from moderate to severe. And a lot of people, because it's not visible, like my son's speech delay, it's not a visible physical, aspect of him. So when people look at him, they will think, oh, there's nothing wrong with him. He's not shaking. He's not, he doesn't have, a certain tick or things like that. So then they immediately bring down the level of the child's, disability to an absolute zero because it's not something visual. And that actually takes away from, that's a society thing as well that we struggle with, because as soon as it's not visual, it's not considered to have struggles, if that makes sense. And I think the other thing that bothers, that I've had experience, and I want to say bothers me because, going through this journey for so many years, you kind of learn to adapt to responses and know when to keep quiet and when to take something on. And that special needs kids are sometimes not treated as kids. They put on this pedestal immediately of fragile and, can't do anything for themselves and stuff like that. And yes, put into consideration the severity of special needs. But when you have a mild or moderate special need, you don't actually need to have that approach. You actually take away from the child, respecting them in that sense and talking down to them. That's something that I really struggled with. So my son's, when we first diagnosed the speech delay, he has the input. So he absorbs the information, but because he doesn't have the right words, he doesn't have the output. So immediately when someone spoke to him and he couldn't respond to them, they would dumb down their language and they would actually speak to him like he's a baby. So now he's misunderstanding completely what you're saying because he doesn't understand what you're talking, because everybody else that we have informed about this and ourselves speak to him as if there's, I don't want to say nothing wrong, but we don't treat him differently. So we still, speak to him as if as his age group is and stuff like that. And it actually takes away a lot, because now you're making something obvious to that child by talking to them differently, and you're actually also dampening the progress, because now there's a not a delay, there's a gap in your communication with that child, because you're not actually speaking to them in the correct manner. And a lot of times, special needs kids, again on the moderate side, will be kept away from certain activities and certain experiences. And again, the child is still a child, so let them have those experiences. Let them go, if it's possible, let them go on a fishing trip or take them to the zoo. Let them still have those childhood experiences where now you think they need to be kept in a bubble and only that is allowed, where you're actually taking away so much from their development as well as just being a child.
Yeah, I think it's a very fine line though, because I don't have a special needs child, and the only experience I've had is my sister with those little bit of ear problems growing up, and then a childhood friend of mine, her brother and sister are quite severely special needs. So I had that, but I didn't really interact much with them, and I was a kid growing up. But something that happened to me, I think it was about 3 years ago, we went on, where did we even go? We went on a train trip, and then there was a market at the end, and there was this whole fair going on, and there was a playground. And my two kids were on the, merry-go-round, and I was just pushing it a bit, and there was a whole stack of other kids. I mean, it was like kids like hanging off this thing, and they're all screaming, faster, faster. So I push and I push and I push, and I see another little kid come walking up, and he obviously wants to go on the thing, so I stop it. He climbs on, and I start pushing, and they all start screaming, faster, faster. So I'm playing this thing, Out of the corner of my eye, I see a mom come running, and I thought, and as I noticed that, as this thing spun round, that little boy that had just come up, on his T-shirt, it says, "I'm autistic, be kind."
Wow.
And my heart just, I got the fright of my life. And I stopped it quite quickly, and the mom hauled her kid off and went running. But I think it's a very difficult thing, because, on the one side, we must treat them exactly like other kids, but on the other side, we mustn't. And yes. I think, from that experience of mine, I'm now suddenly more aware when we go out and there's children that I don't know. I actually check their T-shirts when my kids are playing, and I'm a lot more aware of that. So just from that experience of mine, it's not my fault. I think I can't be blamed for giving kids a bit of a ride, but I am very aware now from that. I mean, the look on that mother's face, and I don't know too much about autism, but clearly that wasn't the right thing for her son to be doing. If I had have seen the T-shirt and noticed it before he got on, I would have been very slow and gentle, and I would have watched to see, is he freaking out? He didn't actually freak out. The mom did, but clearly that was something that was going to be a trigger for something, and the mom prevented it. But for me, it was a very upsetting experience. I felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of fear, because I just thought, what if that was my kid?
Yes.
And I know then, it became a very aware to me of how parents of special needs children have to be constantly aware. For me now, one child is 7, the other one is 9. We go to a park. Yes, I watch my kids, but I relax. I chat to the moms, and I watch them out of the corner of my eye. I don't have to stress about anything. And it made me realize how this mother probably has to be on constant alert, like when your child is 2. Yes. So, it was just something that I thought I should share with everybody.
But the thing is, with the invisible special needs, which we'll discuss a bit later. But what I want to point out now is, when someone looks at my son, just observes him, and we start talking about development, and I mentioned that he has Asperger's, and I'll mention some of the symptoms that he has. And most of the responses are, oh, but he doesn't look like anything is wrong with him. Oh, my kid also does that. And in the beginning, it felt like, I don't want to say challenge, but it felt like I had to prove to someone he has special needs. This is a reality for him. But what I do now is, he's made some friends at school now, and all those moms are aware of his diagnosis. So that if, for instance, if there are play dates and stuff like that, no one is caught off guard. Like, oh my soul, what is going on? Why is he doing this? Why is he that? So it also helps them to be able to understand him. If he can't pronounce something correctly, he can't explain something correctly, they know, okay, maybe I should try it like this, or maybe I should try it like that, which actually, it warms my heart because there is an effort to understand him. But at the same time, they still treat him as they would their kids. They just know that there might be a little tiny thing that they might have to, put some attention on and stuff. And so far, the welcoming that he's had with the kids, and it's actually amazing because Asperger's does have problem. Asperger people have problems with social interactions. So they don't know how to approach people. They want to, but they don't know how to approach them. And because of that, they rather stay away because they're afraid of being outcast. And because they also don't understand sarcasm, they might not understand figurative speech. They take everything on a literal level. They might miss jokes and stuff like that. And now, at this age, he doesn't understand these things. He does understand jokes. There's been a lot of progress with his development with that. But, when he's older, there might be things that, like it will go over his head. While everybody's laughing, he'll just be standing there not understanding what is going on because of the social situation that he's in. And so far, all the kids that he's friends with have accepted him as he is because it's that innocence of not seeing anything. And they accept him because that is how he is. And it makes you, as a parent, it really does, in some sense, calm you because you know that he has a group of friends at school and, he's been treated right. We did have a situation last year where he was being picked on by a child. I'm not sure exactly if it's because of certain symptoms, maybe speech delay or some of his mannerisms. But, it made my heart stop because now here's a child that might not understand what is being happening to him. He knows what the term bullying is. We've already discussed this at full length with him to help him, assess the situation. And if someone is being mean to him and stuff like that, what to do in that situation. Because unfortunately, I'm not there to protect him. I'm not there to dissect the situation and see, okay, what is going on. Out there, he's on his own. And, it was difficult for me to send him off because here at home, I can protect him and, control situations. But I cannot expect him to develop socially if I'm the whole time pulling him in. So we had to have these discussions and stuff like that. And I think I might have missed where I'm going with this. The social interactions, the acceptance. And of course, his school, his teachers knowing certain symptoms and things that he struggles with also helps to, control situations if anything does come up, but as well as diffuse situations, because that is also an important thing. If there is bullying going on, it's an immediate, it's something that needs to be addressed immediately in any situation. But so much more because he already has a social problem that he might not understand it as being bullying. He might see, okay, this child is giving me attention, which is great because it's something that I can't go and ask for. But in the other sense, it's actually damaging because it's not good interaction. So, there's, I'm sorry, I now went off topic here, but the cues and sorry, not the cues, but like you said, you're more aware of it because you know more about it and you know what to look out for. And I think that is, a very important part of talking about invisible special needs, to get that message out, to say, yes, okay, you might not see it, but it's there. So just keep that in the back of your mind because accept the child as they are, yes, but treat him, the same. But just remember that there might be something that is just a little bit different. And actually, the word different is fitting in the sense that they're not different to other children. They just see and experience the world differently. That is one thing that I've really noticed with him, is that when you go watch a show or a cartoon, where the other two kids will be focused on the main character, and he'll just randomly be like, "Oh, mom, look at what's going on there," and it's something we didn't even notice. So it just shows that yes, he has a difference, but it's the difference of how he sees and takes in the world, and it's something that I really love about it. Yes, special needs has got its struggles, but that aspect of it I really love because it opens our eyes to seeing things differently. So
I like that. And there's a movie, not a movie, a series that I watched now. For the life of me, it's going to drive me crazy. I can't remember the name, but it's about a teenage boy who is on the spectrum, and it follows his life and his parents and the struggles that they have. And I really loved how they showed how this boy, I mean, he was functioning. He was in a public school, but he didn't understand the subtleties of life at all, and he took everything literally. And he had no filter on what he says. So you ask him something, and he just answers like blatant, just honest truth, but something that normal. Mustn't say normal, but the general person that is not special needs, you wouldn't say that because it's not polite, or it's not, so he would offend people and do things, but it's actually quite, when I look at it, it's someone that is so pure, so honest, so real, but very, very different. And I think, anybody that wants to get a bit of an insight into special needs and how the person is different, it would be a really good series to watch, but I can't get the name in my head. So I will look it up and I'll put it into my blog post later. But yeah, I really enjoyed that.
well, as you say, the bluntness, it's happened a couple of times. So you can say something, but you can, even if it's not a negative thing, but if it, okay, let me just start with what happened. So my kids were eating breakfast before school time, and so the middle child, he was talking very loudly, and obviously morning breath is a thing, and I would just be like, what, maybe just finish eating and then go brush your teeth. So I would say in a very subtle way. I see here someone said Atypical is the series on Netflix. There we go.
Someone said it's Speechless. Robin said it's Speechless, and now Corey has said it's Atypical. Yeah. So the one that I watched is Atypical, but that's why I've got my pen. I'm writing down Speechless, but Atypical is the one, and I'm going to watch Speechless. Thank you so much.
So you have an approach to tell someone, their breath smells a bit funky and stuff like that. And
oh dear.
My oldest son was like, "What did you eat? Your breath smells horrible." And in some sense, it was that child innocence of, you don't maybe know yet how to approach it. But on the other side, it was that bluntness of he's just saying what he feels. And, we laughed about it. And then afterwards I said to him, maybe just try and say it this way because it comes across as rude. And while we know that is how he communicates, other people will see him as being rude, and having no manners. And that's again one of those things that you need to be aware of when you hear him speaking, that it's not that he's purposely being rude, that is just the way his mind is thinking. And even though we do add on the little details of you should maybe do it this way, you should maybe do it that way, you cannot control it in every situation. You can approach it afterwards and then say this is how you should maybe do it and like that. But in the moment, people that are aware of it will, I won't say laugh it off, but I mean, sometimes the way some things he says comes out completely hysterical, even though he makes a good point, but there's a different approach to how you should actually, discuss it in social situations. And that again brings you down to understanding something. And I'm not saying when I explain it to someone, they should now know exactly everything. but just the little details of the quirks, this could be there and this could be there. So then when it happens, you're not in this shock of, okay, what just happened? Why, what is wrong with your child? That's why is he so ill-mannered or something like that? But by knowing these subtle little differences will help you as well not be completely taken off guard, but as well as know how to respond without reprimanding or completely misjudging the situation. And then the other thing that I think that the general public should take into big account is that special needs are not contagious. You cannot. It's not a disease or a virus that you can pick up from interacting with that person. We've had situations where I've spoken to parents, and then it's like this little bit of moving away from us. And I'm like, 5 seconds ago, your child was playing with mine with no problems. And now that I've discussed his condition, suddenly, his whole perspective has changed. So which shows, you're seeing him as nothing is wrong. But as soon as you hear that label, you immediately now move away. And that is actually very harmful, again, with the problem, with interactions, social interactions. Now you have a child that struggles to make friends. You have a child that accepts that friend, and now because you've heard of his diagnosis, you're removing that child. So what do you have? A child that is struggling with interaction. Now you're isolating him even more, which actually does cause harm, because at some point that your child will start realizing, okay, but why am I being isolated? Why is this happening? So it does create some damage, but then again, you cannot expect everybody to react the same way. That is why I mentioned earlier, you have to have a thick skin, because you're going to get the weirdest comments. You're going to get judgment. You're going to get everything, and you need to decide. Sorry.
We can hear the TV blasting.
No, she came to apologize that she put the TV on a bit louder so she doesn't bother me.
That's it's a really good resource as well. And this is something I actually read in my late teens and into my 20s. It was a book that my mom bought, and it was written by a lady called Tori Hayden. Have you heard of her?
No.
Okay, so basically she was I've got it written down here. See, I've got my notes. She's about 69 years old now, and she was working in, I think, Wales or the UK for a period of time, and she's got a master's degree in special education and a doctorate in educational psychology. And what she did is she worked, so she's an author, and she wrote books about her experiences. So it's nonfiction. It's real stories about real children that she worked with. And for a large part of her career, she worked in a mainstream school. But she did the misfit class, the class where the kids didn't fit anywhere. They didn't fit in a special education school for, severely special needs, and they could not fit in the classroom. And it wasn't just special needs. It was also a lot of the children actually were from abusive homes. So they've had really severely traumatic experiences. And she worked with a lot of children that had, used to be called elective mutism, but I think now it's called selective mutism. So it's where there's nothing physically wrong. There's no physical reason for not speaking, but it's an emotional traumatic response. And so she would have like a group of kids in a variety of ages. And so she'd have like, say, maybe 7 children. And some of them have got autism. Some of them have got Tourette. Some of them have got, they're from, they had a traumatic experience, a traumatic life, and they are acting out. So they are misbehaving or acting out in various ways where the teachers can't help them. And a lot of it was about how the other children would be like, yeah, you got the crazies, and that sort of thing. And it's a really interesting book, and it was partly really, really sad. A lot of the books in places had me literally crying. And other parts, you feel so good because, she reaches a child, she tries different techniques. You should read it. You would love it. She's written now 9 books, of which I haven't actually read one. There's one that came out in 2019. So I'm like, yay, I'm going to go get that book. So, I think anybody that wants to get a little bit of insight into all the different finer aspects and the little quirks it was really, really interesting reading all of her books. Beautifully written, very heart-wrenching.
The next thing that maybe the general public should know is when you think of special needs, you tend to focus on the weaknesses, what the child can't do, and that is a big restriction because your focus is actually on the wrong side. Focus on the weaknesses to improve them, but also take into the account the strengths. So yes, my son struggles with speech, but 2 years in a row, he got invitation letters to come and audition for the choir at school. So yes, he struggles with this, but they saw a talent in him where he has to use his speech because he has to memorize lyrics and he has to practice his tone of voice, which he struggled with in the beginning with very monotone. So they saw that potential in him despite everything else, and they're focusing on the strength that he has. He had, like I said, low muscle tone, so he struggled with gripping things and stuff like that. But he has amazing hand and foot coordination, hand and stuff like that. He can kick a rugby ball from the age of 3, where I've had people come and ask me, how did you teach him that? I'm like, I didn't. Partially it's from going to rugby practice with my husband because he used to be a rugby coach. And then it's again watching games. And from that, he was able to develop a skill that we didn't even know he had. So we focus on the things that he struggles with, his speech and all those things. But at the same time, we also focus on what he can already do and improve that. So it also gives him a sense of accomplishment that he might be struggling with this, but there are other things that he is doing very well in, and it's being noticed. So it's very important that, yes, you might have restrictions with the special needs, but don't only focus on them. As I said, focus on improving them and, finding techniques to cope with things. But at the same time, don't just focus on that, but also take time to focus on what they can do and what they're good in, and take the time to invest in that as well. As I mentioned earlier, second opinions. A lot of people will just accept the diagnosis, and that's it. And in some cases, the diagnosis is what it is, but either it's your parenting instinct and your sixth sense, whatever you want to call it. If you feel that there is something scratching at that when you receive the diagnosis, rather go for a second opinion. It'll get you to also calm down and take the time to accept what is going on. Or it could be in our case where we went for the first opinion and it was just the complete opposite of what we know him as, and we went for a different opinion, and then we actually got the correct answer to what is wrong and what we can do about it. And if I think back, if we had accepted that opinion and we had placed him immediately into a special needs school, I always wonder, would he have developed as much as he had now? Because now you're in a closed environment where there, in a mainstream school, you've got that competitiveness of you need to be better than the kid next to you. Where in a special needs school, you will have a program that's set for each individual specifically. So you're only going to grow at your own pace. Even though you've got all the kids in that class, you don't have that challenge. And again, you need to keep in mind the severity of the special needs. There is no push that you have of, okay, I need to be better at this. You just have your program, and that is what they focus on. So, I sometimes do wonder, and also when I speak to parents that are considering special needs schools, assess the situation. That's again for the next topic. But, you need to assess the situation where your child will do better. If they can go to a mainstream school, then let them. If you pick up on struggles there, then you have the option of going to a remedial or a special needs school. But don't take away the potential that they could have and the development that they could have by just immediately accepting a diagnosis. Because now you're not just accepting the diagnosis for now, you're accepting a diagnosis that you're going to be growing with. And that impacts the future in many ways. So second opinions, I do recommend them. I've seen it happen a couple of times where there has been a misdiagnosis and the parents only went for a second opinion later on, and that damage was already done. There was already a delay in a development that could have actually been addressed had there been a second opinion. And once you get an opinion, your first opinion, a lot of parents will just accept it because, okay, you know what, we can just place the kid in a special needs school and they will be taken care of. We don't need to worry about, anything further because everything there will be enough for them. And again, I do not agree with that, because as much as it is the school's responsibility, it is yours as well. You cannot just leave everything to the school, because at the end of the day, that child still comes home. And you as a parent need to educate yourself and inform yourself, of all the coping mechanisms that your child might need, of different sensory processing, I forgot the word now, sensory processing, not disadvantages, I can't remember the word now, sensory processing struggles that they will be applied at the school, but as a parent, do you know what they are? Because if your child has a meltdown at home, do you know how to handle it? You cannot just stand and scream at the child, because they are not, it's a complete shutdown, emotional, everything. You're not going to get through to the child by screaming at them to stop throwing a tantrum. You need to know, get a heavy blanket and put it over them, hold them. That's just one of the methods, but
no problem. Just something interesting I'd like to share with everybody, that Annie was talking about, focusing not only on the challenges that your child faces, but also focusing on their strong points. And one thing that I've seen quite a lot is that a lot of, not just children, but people with special needs have got some incredible, incredible talents. So one of the things that I love watching is The Voice and X Factor and all of that. I really find it sort of nicely entertaining. And I've noticed that there's a lot of people that have gone there with special needs. I can't remember what the one guy's name was. It was absolutely incredible. He had autism, and he came on with his mom. He was an adult with autism, but he came on with his mom. He was blind. He walked with a cane. He struggled to speak. He stuttered, and he was quite autistic. And he then sat down at the piano, and he absolutely nailed it. It was like mind-blowing. I can't remember what his name was. Maybe you guys know Jamie Lee, something Lee. There's other people that have had Tourette's syndrome or stutter. So they struggle to speak. They stutter a lot. But as soon as they start singing, they kind of like burst out into song, and it's absolutely perfect. And the talent is absolutely insane. So I just want to check. Hey, I was just sharing and commenting on, you spoke about the autistic side and the talents. So you need to focus on what they do have and what they don't, what they're struggling with. And I was just sharing about that I love watching X Factor and The Voice and all of those singing things. And I don't know if you know let's just see now if someone's got that guy's name, Tony Lee or Cody Lee. Thank you, Devashni. You've seen it. Oh, you guys have all seen it. So
yes.
Did you see that one with Cody Lee?
Yes.
Where he came on and sang. It was absolutely incredible. And there's so many people that have come on with Tourette's and stutters and all of that. And then they get there and they can barely speak. And they start singing. And suddenly their disability is just gone. And they're just like, it's absolutely amazing. And I think, totally. And one thing that that I really found in those books that Tori Hayden wrote is that she would focus on the beauty of these children. So it wasn't just about the stuff that they struggle with. It's the absolute beauty and creativity and the other side of it. So yeah, a lot of people that don't know much about it may look at them and judge and think, oh, stay away. But there's a huge amount of beauty and there's a huge amount of positives as well.
To add to this, a while ago I was actually reading up on famous people that had, were not classified then as special needs, but if you look at them, now with all the information that we have in the medical field, Mozart actually had a couple of Asperger-like symptoms, and look what he did with the music. He wrote his own music and he became how famous with that. Albert Einstein was a mute up to the age, I think, of 8. So he had a different type of special need, if I want to say. But look at his findings and work in science. So that's why it's so important, as you said, it's so important to look at the strengths of what they have and also focus on that. So if they're good with drawing, buy them all the paper that they can, buy them the paint, and let them express themselves. I mean, when he was still struggling with his pencil grip, my son, he didn't want to touch a pencil. He hated drawing because his hand would get so sore, and then he would get frustrated because he's in pain, and all I'm saying is please finish this, and it's a constant battle of why doesn't he want to do this? He's supposed to do this, he doesn't want to. And he's getting frustrated, I'm getting frustrated. Where now, because we've developed his muscles, if there's any paper lying around anywhere, it's considered his. So he will draw on everything that he can find. I told him the only thing he's not allowed to draw on is in my bullet journal. Anything else he finds, he's more than welcome to use. But it's again, now that he knows it and he enjoys it, he takes time to do that. And another thing that we've noticed is he will draw a structure, some design that he will create, and then he'll go and take his Legos and he'll go and build it in 3D, and he'll sit there and see if there's any faults. But instead of fixing it first on the Lego piece that he built, he'll go back to his design and he'll fix that. And if it looks fine there, he'll go to his design. So again, saying that the strengths that are coming through now, we support that and we give him the resources and the tools to pursue it. Obviously now with with the pandemic and cultural activities have been shut down and the sports have been shut down, so he doesn't get that. He doesn't get those activities now. And I know he misses it because since last year he's been complaining that he only played 2 rugby matches and nothing happened since then. But the fact that he enjoys it and he gets to socialize, even though it's not full-on communication because you're running around and you're learning different drills and stuff like that, he's interacting with other children on his own level, on his own understanding. And that brings him joy because yes, he's being accepted and he's doing something he loves. And if we hadn't, picked it up early on, he wouldn't have this experience now. And the same as with the choir. It was just, they were having grade R graduation and the music teacher was listening to all the kids singing. And one day we got the letter of, you're invited to come in and, have your child audition. And I was like, what? No, he hardly even sang the song. How would you know what he's saying and stuff? And he got in. And at the end of last year, they listened again to the what do you call it, to the voices, and we got another letter. But obviously now everything has been delayed. But it also is good that other people are seeing the strengths and not just focusing on the restrictions. And that also helps with building a relationship with those teachers and extramural pupils that don't push him away because there are weaknesses with maybe learning the lyrics, but they push him to develop the talent that he actually already has. So that, that's where that line of focus on the weaknesses to develop them and improve them, but at the same time, make sure you focus on the strengths as well. Because you'll be surprised what special need kids can do if you give them that opportunity.
Totally. And I think we've now gone from one topic into moved through all the topics. So I just put the next banner up. So we can just kind of talk a little bit about, what do you think schools and teachers need to know about special needs?
Okay. The biggest thing before you can actually think of schools and, what school to place your child in is you need to assess their possibilities of fitting into a mainstream school, depending on the needs that they have, and if placement into a special needs school would be the best option. So I'll be able to talk from the perspective of immediately going into a mainstream school, and the biggest thing is informing the school about the diagnosis. I wouldn't recommend just enrolling your child and then halfway through the year or a few months down the line with your child being in the school, you're going to get a call from school and saying, okay, you know what, your child is doing this, your child is doing that, and all this. We don't know what's going on. And you will be like, oh, yeah, I forgot to say he's got or she's got this and this and that. So you're actually taking away the opportunity for the teachers to prepare for your child, if they need to specifically place them in a small group, like you get the classes with very little children in them, they need more focus and, one-on-one interaction. And you also give the school the opportunity to make a decision and let you know, will they be able to accommodate them? Because if you put it, no, sorry. She's noticing that I'm gone too long, so she's just checking in.
Mom life.
So it's a normal thing, yeah. So let's put it into sensory processing disorder. So my son had a bit of a sensory processing disorder with sound. He would be very overwhelmed with too much noise, and that would create an emotional meltdown. So now if you have a child that has got sensory processing disorder, which is a bit more on the extreme side, and there is a situation in class where that happens, will the teacher know how to handle the situation correctly? Because she might assume that he's just misbehaving or she's just misbehaving, where actually that child has got no control over what they're feeling and doing. So the other side you need to think about is, if you have situations with those disruptions, how will other parents react to their child's education being disrupted by these situations? So you need to be very honest, and I mean like brutally honest about your situation, and communicate it through to the school, so that they can also make an informed decision. Will they be able to accommodate your child and their needs, or would it be best to place them in a special needs school? And
sorry, just on the auditory processing disorder. It's the auditory processing disorder. So I actually wrote. I wrote an article about that a while ago, and how I understand it is that, you get people that are deaf, so they don't hear what's being said. But as I understand it, the auditory processing disorder, they do hear it, but something gets scrambled between their ears and their brain, basically. So they can't get the actual information. They don't understand what's being said. So as I understand it, a lot of schools will allow you to take in it's like a headset type thing, where the child wears headphones and the teacher wears like a mic, so that the child can hear just what the teacher's saying. Because I think when they hear the teacher speaking and this little kid whispering over there and a rustle of paper over there and a door slamming, it becomes like too much and they can't process it all. So, you can discuss certain things like that will make it easier on the child, the teacher, and all the other students, so that the headphones block out everything but what the teacher's saying.
Yes, that's actually actually for our next topic. The accommodation.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying. It's actually amazing how everything interlates. If you think about it. The other thing is teachers. If you're a teacher at a special needs school, you go for very specific training, because you need to learn about the different diagnoses and the medical conditions. You need to know how to handle them, and as well as how to create a proper education plan for that specific child. And I don't believe that, again, from experience, that all teachers do have that knowledge, because if you're studying education and you're going to work in a mainstream school, the chances of having a 50% ratio of, sorry, my husband, special needs kids, and then, I don't want to use the word normal, but, not having any disabilities kids, you're not going to get that ratio in a mainstream school. It's not possible. So when a teacher goes to work at a mainstream school, she's not going to necessarily take on the training to work with special needs kids, because it's not going to be a big factor in the school. I know that last year he had a teacher with a child psychology degree, and they specifically placed him in her class because she would be able to understand him a lot better, as well as respond to any psychological indifferences and stuff like that. So that was very, very nice of them, because when they were placing him into grade 1, they actually put into consideration that this would be the best option for him. And I actually thought that they would place him into the class where there are only 14 kids, where there's that more one-on-one interaction. And actually, he was in one of the classes with the most kids. There were 26 kids in his class. So they saw that there was more importance to have a teacher that is qualified to be able to see any small, not disagreements, but problems that might arise or changes in behavior, instead of placing him into a class where you'll get that one-on-one, but not necessarily someone that will understand him when the need comes. So it would obviously be great if all teachers had the that extra education. It would, I think, make a lot of lives easier for parents, knowing that their child's needs would be understood correctly. But it's not something you can expect from a mainstream school, because they don't specialize in having.
Well, that's something that I wanted to bring up. Now, I'm not a teacher. I don't know what teachers get taught. So, I'm coming from a place of complete ignorance here. But my way of thinking is that I don't have a special needs child, but I know that there are a lot of people that have got children with varying degrees of special needs. And you said something about they don't do it because they don't need it. But maybe if they did do a brief course, so they've got like a general understanding of what we're discussing now. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a massive module and a huge focus of the teaching degree, but shouldn't it be a section? Maybe it is, I don't know. But shouldn't it be a section? Because, I mean, there's so many special needs children, and at some stage, every teacher is going to have a child with special needs in their class.
That is a reality. Yes. I mean, last year, the year before, there was a girl in his class that also had speech therapy. Last year, I found out about 2 boys in our grade that also were on the high functioning scale of autism. So they're there. There are special need kids in mainstream schools, and there was an article I read about how many special needs schools there are in South Africa, and there are just under 500 schools that cater for special needs children. So now you have, and also it's not in the areas that do not have them are rural areas. There are no special schools there. to accommodate kids. So either parents end up not sending their children at all to school because there is no place to put them, there's no school for them, or they end up homeschooling. And the reality is also that mainstream homeschooling is not also always catered to special needs children. You need to also keep that into factor when looking at schools and education. So a lot of people's only option would be to place their child in a mainstream school. But if the school cannot accommodate even the moderate symptoms, then you're again stranded with a lack of support, lack of proper education for your child, and eventually either having to take your child out, some parents even having to relocate to different areas to find special needs schools, or just not sending their children to school at all. And I mean, even though a child has special needs, they are still entitled to an education. And that is something that is taken away because there are not enough facilities to accommodate them. So, and I was just reading one of the comments here from Sandiso, where she says that in a mainstream school, it's difficult for teachers to understand that the child has special needs because they didn't train to cater for kids with special needs. But some can as they are exposed or have a child with special needs. And I think that's a very relevant point, that if all teachers had just that one little background, or that's one little extra subject on how to maybe spot special needs, or how to cater to certain mild or moderate special needs children, that it would also help more parents to be able to put their kids into mainstream schools. And I'm not saying go out and get a degree in it, but have a background knowledge, or at least a background surface of this information, so that when you do come across it, you don't see it immediately as a problem, but as an, okay, here is something, but let's do this about it and let's see what we can do about it. So it will immediately give that child acceptance, because now the child might not understand it, but they're not actually supposed to be there because they have a special need. But if you create a platform that caters to them, again, I feel like I should just mention this again, depending on the severity of the special needs, if the teachers are equipped to be able to do it, it will make their lives easier, it will make the child's lives easier, as well as the parents' lives easier. And all that comes together just by educating, not just as us as parents, but as well as just adding that little bit extra to the teachers' curriculum when they're studying, and building that foundation as well with them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the thing is, and this is how I look at it, is that schooling our kids and education, it's not just the teacher's responsibility or the schools or just ours. It's a combined effort. And I always look at it and say, well, a teacher, it's not just about learning how to get the stuff into the kid's head, drill it in so that they know what they're doing. Each child, special needs or not, each child has got a different way of learning, of taking in information. And I've seen it with my kids when I do homework. I explain a sum in one way, and they're like, I don't get it. And then I do it in a different way, and they're like, oh. And I think, a teacher's job is learning how to connect with each child. And it's a hell of a hard job. I mean, I homeschooled my kids for a period last year. I've got a whole newfound respect for teachers. I mean, the job that they do, it's insane. I don't think I could do that ever. But it's about learning how to connect with each child. And the fact is that special needs is a part of that. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think it should become a module. If it's not already, it should become one, so that, the teachers can learn to connect with that child, not just for that child, but for the whole class.
Yes. The thing is also, like the whole thing of everybody needs to fit into a box. It's pretty much just like in school. Everybody needs to conform to this. Everybody needs to have this standard. And let's take special needs out of the equation. We're all different from each other, in a lot of ways. So if you already can't put us all into one box, then you have a special needs child that they also tried to put into this box, which will never work because they already have so many differences to the children already in this box that they want. But by letting every child be an individual and seeing that child as an individual, or an adult for that matter, would make things so much easier, because there's already that acceptance and that community that comes together, and that acceptance in society that yes, we're all different, in many ways, but we're here together and we treat each other, with respect. And just because I do this thing and you do this thing doesn't mean that I'm, on a lesser scale than you are. I just see things differently to the way you do it. And it's always this, if you think about short division and long division, at the end of the day, you get to the same answer, but it's your process and how you go through it that differs. So both answers are right, but it's the difference in how you approach it and how you need to solve it. So it's the same thing with special needs kids. They might get to something, in a longer path than a child that doesn't have special needs. So the journey is different, but the end result is exactly the same.
Yeah, most definitely, for sure. I think I would love to get onto this topic, because I think this is a huge thing right now, and you've already brought it up. And it's I actually watched a video recently on how, and this is not just necessarily children at home, but it was special needs, how special needs care has been impacted now during the pandemic. So there's a lot of people that have not been able to go to the hospital, they haven't been able to go into the care homes, etc. And people with special needs have been seriously impacted by this pandemic because they're not getting the therapies that they need. Yes. So you spoke briefly on your experience. Maybe you can share a bit more.
So one of the biggest things that I did notice last year, and it is a symptom from the Asperger's, is that routine is very crucial. For kids with special needs, if they know what to expect, it creates a sense of security and a stability. So now, some children adapt easily to change and they can just pick it up and go. But with children that struggle with change and they need that, that routine that is so, set in stone, or else, one little misstep could lead to a meltdown or anxiety and stuff like that. That it's one thing that I noticed with my son last year was he was used to the structure at school. Even though we homeschooled for quite a while, as soon as he got into the mainstream school, it's a different routine. There's structure. He knows what to expect every single day. And then last year, when everything just came to a complete shutdown, the first few weeks were, he cried, I cried. Let's just put it, in that sense, because now he's got this big abruption of his school routine, of not seeing his friends, not having his social interactions, even though, we're at home for his brother and his sister, but it's not the interaction that he needs to be getting, that he wants to be getting, because he wants to see his friends. And for me, it was getting him back to a home routine now, because now it's a lot different to being in school, where I just needed to focus on 2 kids at home while he's at school. Now I've got 3 kids. I've got the homeschool, the online learning that I need to focus on, as well as the rest of the household that is here. And you can't split the attention. You have to, but you can't, because there's always someone that needs something. And we can't use it as an excuse. Oh, okay, we can't do schooling because there's too many disruptions, because everybody's going through this. So you still need to commit to doing that, because from a mainstream school's perspective, you don't have that excuse. You chose to put your child into a mainstream school, so you still need to uphold the standards of that school. And I remember, I felt so guilty afterwards, but I remember one day I broke down. I was in tears. And I said to my husband, I wish the schools would just open so that for 6 hours of the day I could have some peace, away from the tantrums, away from the meltdowns. And I mean, it probably sounds selfish to say that because I'm
No, no, I feel you.
I am a human being with emotions that end with limits and levels. And afterwards, I felt guilty for feeling that way because in some cases he couldn't help the way he felt. But at the same time, knowing that he feels that way doesn't take away the frustration I feel. And my husband said to me, "You're justified to feel that way because everybody's feeling that way. Everybody's frustrated because the parents have to work, schools have work has to be done. There were parents that had to do online schooling with more than one child. So there's a lot of frustration now pushed into this little box, as well as now we're confined to our houses. So there's, that little bit of irritation there with each other. And this one is irritating this one. So it's a whole ball game that comes together down to, the huge abruption with everything that is going on. And, we were lucky with the mainstream schooling. We were lucky to get all the information, from the school and the schoolwork, and there weren't any extra things that we needed to provide for. The therapy, we were still doing speech therapy last year, so we had the option to do video chats to continue with therapy, or we could just get a 3-week program to work through at home. So we opted for the program, basically just because it's stuff that I've already been doing for how long. So I know how to, do the activities with him and everything like that. At some point when the restrictions did go down a bit more, we were able to go to the school and see the therapist directly, which only I think happened once, and then the schools opened again. So we had that option, at least. We had that option to continue with therapy. And I know that with special needs schools specifically, if you have a child that is blind or deaf, and now you have to do schooling, and education at home, do you necessarily have the methods and the equipment to do that? Do you have the knowledge of how to do that? Because you have trained professionals at school that know how to do this and, do this every single day, whereas you as a parent might not have that knowledge. And again, you can learn about how, coping mechanisms and stuff, all these things. But to actually educate a person with special needs is a different ballgame, because you can read a word sum, with a child, for instance, and they can easily understand it by just reading it off the page. Where with a special needs child, because sometimes cognitive thinking is not developed, which controls our problem solving and logic and judging of situations. If they can't, see that word sum for what it is, because the cognitive thinking hasn't been developed yet, how do you explain it to them in a different way that they will understand? Would you have the right tools, and resources yourself to do that?
Annie, just to interrupt quickly, I didn't have the tools to teach my non-special needs children. So, I was out of my depth. I nearly the end of me. In fact, last year during that first hard lockdown, I actually phoned the teacher and I said, I just can't with my son. I just cannot. He's in grade 1. I sat one day for 5 hours. Him and I were both in tears at the end of it. And I actually just phoned the teacher and I said, I just can't do it. I cannot do it. I need to work and I've got another child and like my own mental health. I can't. And she said, leave it, we'll catch up when he gets back to school. So I was very fortunate that he's in a really good school and that they were happy to do that. But if I didn't have what it takes to teach my non-special needs grade 1 child at home, how is someone that's got a special needs child at home supposed to teach their child? I don't know. It's too much.
Yes. No, I agree with you. And again, it's not, the struggles were there with everybody last year, not just special needs, but every single parent that was now thrown into this whirlpool of extra responsibility, because I mean, your child goes to school, they get their schoolwork there, they come home, they do their homework, which is just a small portion of what they do at school, and that's done. Now you have to be your child's teacher, which is difficult. Someone once said to me that I'm a okay, it's not swear. I'm a badass mom because I've been homeschooling for so long, and that with this pandemic, it wasn't something different for me because I've already done this. And I thought about it. I was like, at first, I was like, you've got a point. I've done this before, but I didn't have a structured school system. With the homeschooling, we went on our own pace. So if I needed to do a bit more work with a specific subject, I made time for that, and then the rest would come later. Whereas school, you don't have that luxury of being relaxed, because it's a syllabus that needs to be worked through, and everything needs to be done by a certain time. And I thought to myself, but there were struggles. Even though I've had the experience of homeschooling, it's a lot different to what it was last year than what it was 3 years ago, because he was not different. He was used to a different structure at school. So now this whole structure had to change again, and he was frustrated. He actually once mentioned to me that schoolwork is for school, so why am I supposed to be doing it at home? So we had to get through that cheekiness of everybody's doing that now. This is the new thing now. So there were a lot of changes that he had to go through himself. With firstly, I know everybody had a struggle with isolation, but for him, my concern was because he needs social interaction. He's not getting it anymore. And we did a couple of video calls with friends, but it's not the same as actually being in that person's presence and spending time with them. So he lost out on social interaction, and I want to say development, not with making growing friendships and stuff like that. Then there was the the takeaway of the sports and the cultural aspects, which affected him, because now it's something that he enjoys so much, and it's just gone. It's just taken away. So that also affected him. And I mean, he surprised me last year. In the first few weeks, yes, the struggle was getting into a new routine and making it work again. And not once did he ever complain about being stuck at home. Like I was actually taken back by that the growth that he's had emotionally and stuff like that he never once complained. And I remember close to the second time of the school opening, he came up to me and he said, "Mommy, can this virus just go away already?" And I said to him, we all wish that, but what's wrong? And he said, "I just want to go and see my friends and play rugby and sing. I miss it." And it wasn't like a breakdown of him, but he said it so calmly that it actually took me back, because I was expecting, an emotional meltdown at some point, that this is too much. And, at some point there has to be a breaking point. And he actually handled it so well that I was really taken back. And, I thought afterwards, okay, did I actually underestimate my kid? Which is something I wrote about on my blog, about people underestimating my child so much. But I took it from a good side. Not I'm underestimating him, but the growth that he has had to be able to actually so maturely respond to what's going on and think about, why it's bothering him so much. Okay, so maybe he didn't mention that he misses schoolwork, but I mean, what child would say that? But the things that are important to him, things that he struggles with, like his social interaction, he misses his friends, he misses socializing, he misses, the cultural events. All that stuff just showed that it had an impact on him, the change, but he somehow managed to work through it without letting his emotions get the better of him. So we were lucky in that sense that we didn't have, yes, we had changes and we had struggles, but it wasn't that impactful as it was with some other special needs families. And I know that, I can't speak for others. I only know what I've been told, with sharing with other parents, that there have been schools that didn't even provide any information. It didn't provide any educational plans. So now here is a child that, that needs to continue with education. The parents are at home. They've got no idea where to go and, what to start with and what to do. And that adds on another, stress factor, because now you need to be doing this, but you've got no resources or tools to go with. And it's something I feel that, our school, I must say, really handled last year well. That we were lucky in that sense. But I know that a lot of schools didn't have that opportunity to have that, graceful switch over. And, as much as it is a change for the children, the overwhelm for parents, all the parents again in that matter, must have been a very big stress factor that added on to already not having what's needed to provide the education. So again, some people came away with it very well, and then you've got the other side that that didn't get it. And it's a difficult subject, to really go into, because everybody's experiences with it has been different. So yes, there have been impacts, but we worked through them. I can't say if it's because I've had the experience of homeschooling before that it was easier, or handling certain ways, or how the school handled it. I think it's really a mix of a lot of things. And it was, the first few days was like, okay, I need to get back on my feet eventually. Just relax for a few days. Let's gather our thoughts, and then we clicked it off. But I know for some other, special needs parents that I spoke to, it was a complete turnover of events, because they had no idea where to go and what to do, as well as there was no access to the therapists of the children. The therapy sessions couldn't go through, so it felt like everything just came to a complete standstill with them. And yes, it was difficult, as they expressed, their lives of last year. But eventually they got on their feet. They had to find their own resources, and eventually the school came through. So I think that it has impacted not just, normal education schools and stuff like that, but it had, I think, also a very big impact on special needs schools and the requirements that those parents needed to be able to educate their kids for the network.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing that I struggled with is that in the beginning, our school did, I think, exceptionally well considering under the circumstances. But one of my biggest struggles in the beginning is that the school sent us schoolwork that was meant for school. It wasn't a homeschool program. It was the teacher just sending the stuff that they would have done. And for me, it's like, I don't have the time to prepare for these children's lessons and then do the lesson. So I found that very trying, and I'm sure that exactly the same, would have happened with every single school, and especially the special needs schools, to try and adjust to, having a program that is specifically geared for homeschooling. You can't just take the school program and send it to the parents and expect any sort of results.
It actually happened earlier this week when we were doing homework. So we've got school books that stay at school, and then we've got the DBE books that stay as homework books. And there was one part in the maths, because I prepare usually on a Sunday for the week, so I know if there's anything I need extra and stuff like that. And I remember sitting and looking at this. There's no instructions. There's just a picture of something, but there's no instructions. So I'm sitting and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. Now I need to explain it to him, what he must do, but I don't even know what to do. So now, I spoke to a friend of mine, and we came to the conclusion that when they use these books in class, the teacher already has a lesson plan written up. So she knows exactly where she's going with this. We don't get those lesson plans, so we need to wing it. So now, there's a couple of times that I've had to go to my husband and I'm like, help me. I have no idea what's going on here. And then he'll be like, okay, maybe you should do this and this. And I'm like, but this doesn't make sense. So you have to kind of make your own lesson plans, even though everything is there, but to get understanding of it, you need to sit and figure things out. And now with him, I need to explain it on a different level so that he does understand it. And some of the methods that they use at school, he doesn't understand. But if I explain to them, explain it in a different way at home, he understands it. So, but then when he goes to school and explains how he did this, it's wrong because it's not the way the school needs to do it. So there's this constant juggle of you teaching your child one way because you have to now teach your child at home, and then you've got the school's way of teaching, which doesn't agree with the way you're doing it at home, but you're not getting the resource to do that lesson from the school. So it's like this vicious circle of not miscommunication, but a gap somewhere. And it's not like you can go to the school now and discuss these things, or, because you're not allowed on the premises with all the rules and stuff. So you just take what you have and you work with it. And if it's wrong, by the time they go back to school, well, I'm not a teacher. I'm a mom, yes, but I'm not educated to give, education and stuff like that. I go on what there is, as well as any extra work that I, have for him to improve speech and memory and stuff like that. So I don't have that capability to teach as a teacher would, because that's why you're trained to be able to do it that way.
Yeah, well, I was class mom last year for my son's grade 1 class. So I had all the moms contacting me and asking me, what are we supposed to do here? And I would just wing it. I say, let's just do this and this and this. And they say, what if it's wrong? I say, I don't care. We've done something. We were told to do a task. We don't know how to do it. I'm just going to come up with something that looks right, and we just do that. And you know what? It's going to be good enough, because our kids have, it's not like they've done nothing. They've done something. And I just, that was just my policy to, like in last year, it's like we do the best we can with what we have, and that's good enough. And that's that, And the teacher, when she said it's wrong, I say, well, I take responsibility. I guided everybody. And we all did it wrong. They followed my lead, but we did it. We did stuff, I think that's all you can do.
I just realized my laptop is not connected to a charger. I just want to quickly get it, or else I'm going to disappear in 2 seconds.
Okay, perfect. No problem. So, yeah, we've got Devashini agreeing with me. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how many comments we've had, but we've had a huge amount of comments here from fans. We've got Nadia that has said that they've experienced firsthand how cruel society can be, and the family that doesn't understand. We've got Devashini that's got a nephew that needs help. I'm just going through a couple of the comments we've had. I don't know if you can see the comments that's coming through on social media. I know you've been looking at the private chat comments with the people that have joined the video. But the amount of comments we've had.
I just want to quickly say something about Lenora's comment, if it's possible. Yes.
Yeah,
she says that he has to know that he's different, but he's not going to be treated differently, and that is actually very, very correct. So at this age, we cannot explain to my oldest son that there are certain things, because he's not going to understand it. But as soon as he gets older, we will showcase that this is there and this is there, but it's not going to reflect in treating him differently. He's still who he is, but I feel that it would be right for him to know so that he can also understand himself. So it's also important at some point to talk to your children about this, but reassure them that just because they're different, that they're not going to be treated differently. So, where she says that he also knows what's wrong is wrong and right is right. And that's where I mentioned about not taking away experiences from kids to learn and to develop in a social society. You can still teach them morals and standards, even though it might take a bit longer. So she makes a very valid point about how children should be treated with special needs and how to help them adapt to these things.
I think something I can just share from my own experience here is that if you're going to talk about labels, so basically your child has been labeled special needs, don't let a label define you or your child. I've got labels. I've got, like, you can choose a label. I've got codependency, addiction, alcoholism, self-harm, bipolar. I can add more, but it's part of who I am, but it's not who I am, and it doesn't define everything about me. And I think that's a really important part. And I don't want to be treated differently. I have people, it's actually very sweet. Like, I had a friend, I was going there for a play date with my kids for the first time, and she phoned me up and she says, I've got wine. I've got a wine rack in my house, and I just want to know, must I hide it? And I said, well, I've been clean for nearly 13 years. I think I can handle a couple of wine bottles, being in my vision. But, on the other hand, and I think this is why I find these videos so important, is I like to tackle these topics. I like to talk about them, because why should we not talk about them? A lot of people think, oh, special needs, don't look at that person, don't talk about it, and I don't think that's the right way to do it.
That's the stigma that's really attached to it. And I feel as a parent of a special needs child, it is my responsibility to be his advocate, because he cannot stand up for himself. And the more we talk about this and the more light that we shine on this, we can actually start breaking away from that stigma that it's still a human being. Yes, he or she is a bit different, but it's still a human being. There's nothing like I said, contagious or anything like that. But it also then, you can't normalize special needs. That will never happen. But by talking about this, you can bring in acceptance that yes, we are different, and there are people that are just a little bit more different, and we can accept them even though they have bigger differences than we are. And I think that is why it's so important to discuss these subjects, even though I know some people will be like, it's not that important, it's not, they're just talking, it's not really that difficult. But by highlighting the difficulties and actually engaging with people and discussing experiences and opinions creates an environment where people can also come out, who don't have support systems, and find a safe space and be like, you know what, I need help, or I don't know what to do with my child, or can do you have advice on this? So not only is it spreading awareness, but it also welcomes moms that feel alone, or dads that feel alone, that feel like there's no one they can turn to, because everybody that they have is now treating them differently, not just the child, but them as well as a family, to find a support system and to interact with other parents that are going through the same, and that can also give them advice, and it just creates its own community with it. So yes, spreading the message, but as well as letting parents know that it's okay. It's okay to be frustrated, because you're a human being. It's okay to talk about your struggles. You're justified in talking about your struggles, because that is where your life is and what you're going through. And by talking more about this, again, sending the message out, informing people, and you can do all these videos and these discussions, but at the end of the day, you will still have people that will not understand, because either they don't want to, either you're making things up, which I have had, because there's no physical disability on him, that it's just a story that we're creating as excuses, or ignorance is there, and you need to choose where you draw the line of how far you're going to put yourself out there as well, without breaking yourself down to get the message out. Because you can talk to a wall as many times as you want, or bang on it or whatever, you're not going to get a response from it, So you need to know as well where to draw the line without making yourself too vulnerable, as well as protecting your family from rude remarks and negative responses.
Yeah, I think talking about it, being open, being honest, and not being scared to kind of ask the difficult questions, this is what is going to break down the stigma of these things in society. And like I say, I speak from a place of I've had people when I say, oh, I'm an addict, they're like, oh, aren't you ashamed to say that out loud? And I'm like, why? You know, it's a mental health thing that I've struggled with. I've mostly overcome it. I could relapse, but I have done nothing wrong in my life. I didn't bring this on to myself. I mean, this is not a video about addiction. I've done loads of those, but I could just say, you know, from the stigma side of it, and from something that is invisible, I can certainly relate. And that'll take us to the next topic.
Yes.
Boom.
I just wanted to quickly add on to what you said about the stigma of labels. Like I've told you that I was diagnosed with depression 2 years ago. So it's not a physical thing, you know, but there is still a stigma around mental health. And so last year I got a tattoo of a semicolon. And someone asked me, why would you want to wear it? Why would you want to wear your disorder on you? And I said, because yes, it's a reminder of what I've been through and that I'm still here. And I'm not ashamed to say that I have depression, because I am not depression. You know, I am still me. Depression is part of my life, but it doesn't make up who I am. Getting the diagnosis, the person that I was before and the person that I am now hasn't changed. I just have a better understanding of why I am the way I am, and why I am, you know, certain times on a high and at different times on a low. So I'm not going to hide it. And if people ask me questions about it, then I'm more than willing to talk about it, because, you know, mental health, someone told me it's a choice to be depressed. And I thought to myself, why would I wake up not every morning and be like, I don't feel well today, I just want everything to end. Why would you want to do that? You know, it's not a choice, because obviously everybody wants to be happy. How can you place that stigma? Again, you know, the stigma is such a big thing. By taking away something that you can't see, again, invisible, which is now part of our next topic. Just because you can't see it, why would you take away that person's struggle just because you can't see it? So now here, people ask me and I openly talk about it, because I've got nothing to hide. And if you feel like you need to reject me because now it's, you know, I've got depression and stuff like that, then so be it. It's not going to change who I am, and it's definitely not going to change my situation. So
yeah, here's an interesting thing as well, and I think there's things that make people very uncomfortable. So often when I tell people I'm an addict, they don't know what to say to me. They're like, oh, you know, like, I don't know if I should acknowledge it or ask you about it or talk about it. And I've had a lot of people, because I'm so open about it, say to me that, you know, how come are you so open? And I think anybody that has a label or has, well, most people, I can't speak for everybody, but like you're comfortable speaking about it. I think if I had a special needs child, I'd be more comfortable with someone coming up to me and saying, your child looks different. What's the story? Tell me about it. Than someone looking and like, you know, and kind of, oh, I don't want to like make a scene kind of, you know, attitude. And something interesting.
You're actually making a scene by doing that, by just approaching the person and saying, you know what, I just have a question, you know, and that's where it starts. But like standing there, like, you know, no.
Well, something happened with me and my daughter. She got stitches in her knee, and we had to go to the hospital emergency room. And the doctor that attended to my daughter had, she had a huge birthmark. I mean, it covered most of her face. And I mean, I could see it was a birthmark. I mean, you clearly notice it. But my daughter, when the woman went to go get something in the next room, she's, Mom, what is that? And da, 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 you know. And I said to her, no, sweetheart, we don't do it like that. I said, when she comes back, ask her. It's like, oh. So I said, just ask her. Just ask her what it is. Ask her to explain it. So the doctor came back and she said, excuse me, miss, you know, what's on your face? And you could see the way that she reacted. She was like, just explain what a birthmark was, and she welcomed it. And I think, you know, that's something that people should know, you know, especially when something is like way out there, you know, it's better to just look at it face on and talk to the person. You know, there's nothing to be ashamed about.
Yes. Well, it's like, you know, sometimes kids will see someone in a wheelchair and they will very loudly ask, why is that person in a wheelchair? And most of the responses would be the parent going, just don't stare at them, don't look at them. Instead of actually explaining, answering that question. And it happened, we went to do groceries a while back, and my middle son, he's the loudest in the house, so he pretty much shouted across the aisle, "Mommy, why is that man in a wheelchair?" But we were standing quite close to him, so he heard us, and he immediately looked at me, and I just calmly said, "You know what? People are different, and he could have been hurt, he could have been this." So I explained it to him. I can't remember the exact words now, but I explained it to him that it's not something that you need to be staring at or making a big deal out of it, because now you're putting so much attention on that person, and you're actually making them feel more uncomfortable by just asking them or just explaining to what the situation is. And it's the same as with special needs children. Instead of standing there and pretty much having your eyes bulge out of your head because you're staring and trying to see the special need that the people are talking about, but instead of just approach the parent and ask a question, but don't make it awkward. There are enough situations where things are awkward and uncomfortable, and this shouldn't be one of them. And I think that's again the stigma part, is that people can't be approached because maybe the parents will take offense. And I personally would appreciate it more if someone asks me, is there something wrong? Why is this happening? Instead of standing and staring at my child, because firstly, it's creepy. And secondly, you're now making it obvious to everybody else around you, like, okay, why is he staring? Why is this happening? So you're actually creating a bigger problem by just asking a question and getting that answer and maybe getting some understanding. We're standing there staring and making your own incorrect assumptions probably, which adds to the problem with the stigma. So it's a cycle.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are we ready for acknowledgement of invisible special needs?
Yes. Okay. So whoever's not aware of the term invisible special needs, so it's basically disabilities that are not immediately obvious. So for instance, again, autism, you've got your high functioning autism, which is not visibly noticeable immediately, and then you've got your low functioning autism that would be immediate visible acknowledgement of the disability. And so for instance, someone who is blind, you'll immediately be able to see, they're wearing glasses, they've got a walking cane, so you can immediately see that this person has a disability. Where someone that has poor eyesight but doesn't wear glasses but wears contact lenses is still someone that has a certain disability, but it's not visible. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there unless the person tells you about it. And that's the one thing that I've struggled with people understanding my son's special needs, is because it's not visible, it's not there. And I'm not sure if there's, I'm sure there are a lot of people that have also been through this, and it is a problem that comes up because it takes away the justification that the struggles are not there just because you cannot see the special need. And when if to give some examples of his special needs. So I explained the speech delay. If he's not talking around you, you're never going to pick up on it. As soon as he starts talking, then you'll see, okay, he doesn't form his sentences properly, or he doesn't use some of the words in the correct order. Then you'll notice it. But just standing and looking at him like that, where he's not saying anything, you don't see it. Another thing that he struggled with was eye contact. I do that a lot. When I get distracted, I'll look away instead of looking at, the person. But for him, it's a constant thing. He cannot look, before he couldn't look someone in the eye when talking to them, or even when they were talking to him. It was something that we had to work on, because a lot of the time, instead of this being seen as not a disability, but it does fall under Asperger's, one of their symptoms, people would come across him as being rude because now they're talking to him and he doesn't look at them. So instead of actually seeing the problem of it, they're seeing a complete different side of it where he's rude instead of this is something he cannot help doing. And then he had a bit of OCD, which is one of the things that also falls under Asperger's. So it's usually a repetitive action or a repetitive pattern of something. So he would super focus on only a certain thing. So his Legos would have to be packed by color, by size, everything in its own shape. So now there would be, you will see a child just sitting, playing and sorting, but actually he would get frustrated if anything was missing or anything was out of place. He would actually physically get frustrated because it's not in the correct pattern or it's not in the correct structure. So now you're seeing a child that's just playing and packing things neatly, but in actual fact, he has OCD. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it's obsessive compulsive disorder.
My husband has that. I know what it is.
So, and it's not that he can help it. That is how it is. That is his structure, and it's also his security because he knows exactly where everything is and how it needs to be. And then we had problems with comprehension, with being able to hear a story and relating to it. Now, in conversation, that's not something that you might pick up on if it's, a very basic conversation. But when it comes to reading and doing comprehension tests, that you will start seeing it. So it's that fine line of what people see, and then when you explain to them that it's actually something he can't help or he struggles with, they cannot make that connection of there is actually a problem. But because they can't see it all the time, like we do, it's a 24/7 thing for us. We see everything every day. But when you only see a little part of his day, you won't make that association that it is actually something that he struggles with instead of just being something that their child also does and stuff like that. Cognitive thinking, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important for problem solving and judging situations, thinking patterns. So if you have a problem with that, it actually affects long-term a lot of things because you need to be able to judge a situation to know if it's a dangerous one or not. You need to be able to solve a problem, to solve a problem and know what outcomes will be where, and if you make this decision, what will happen with the consequences. And cognitive thinking is something that we actually need for the rest of our lives. It affects a lot of our life aspects. So if you have struggles with that, it's not something visible. It's something in your mind, but it affects so many things. It's a domino effect that affects further into your, into your future and as you grow into an adult. It was the sensory overloads where people would see it as just a tantrum, 2-year-old, 3-year-old child throwing a tantrum in the middle of the shopping center, where actually he's been so overwhelmed by sound or too much crowd and stuff like that he cannot deal with it. So that's why I say there's a very fine line with what is considered an invisible special need, and that there are still so many struggles that come along with it as you would with a special need that is visible. So, and it does upset me to an extent when it's disregarded because it's not physically there, and it takes away the essence of the diagnosis as well, because it's not seen, it's not really there, it's not a problem. When in actual fact, it's a 24/7 problem, because speech and cognitive, as I said, cognitive thinking, it's something that affects our daily lives every day. We talk to people, we need to make decisions and stuff like that. So it's not physical, but it's a struggle. And we need to also give as much support to parents that have children with invisible special needs, as well as parents that have children with severe needs. And I'm not saying compare the two or put them on the same table, because knowing from the struggles that we've gone through, I can only imagine what parents with children with severe special needs must go through. Because I think in that sense, my struggles with my child are like a tiny drop in the ocean, on the magnitude of what they could be going through. So I'm not saying put them on an equal, a scale, but don't take away the justification from parents that don't have the severe special needs children and take away their struggles, because now you're again isolating. You're not providing the correct support that those parents might need. So there's a lot of things that impact how you acknowledge it by how you react to it. So again, it's not about getting recognition. It's not about but acknowledge that they are there, because we already are families that are different from families that function normally. So by isolating us again away from these struggles, you're actually isolating us even more, which adds on to the stigma. So everything comes back to that little word that affects so many things by the way that we react and what we decide to not accept, to acknowledge, and what we don't want to see in it. And the other aspect of acknowledging special needs when you think of struggles is that it's not your child only that is going through these struggles, because you as a parent, you also go through the struggles. You have to learn how to cope with your child's meltdowns or your child's sensory, processing disorders. So there's so much that you have to carry on yourself. You have struggles on your marriage, because now your attention is split to your child, and there you kind of not forget about your marriage, but you don't focus on that. So it can cause rifts in your relationship. If you have more than one child, the attention with that is you need to give every single one attention, but one of them needs more attention. And I remember that it had a very big impact on my middle child, where I had to focus on my oldest child the whole time because he needed this and he needed that. And he was there. I did all the basics. He was fed, he was dressed, and everything. But I didn't give him the proper time of sitting down and playing with him. Sitting down and doing some artwork. So I saw a lot of the consequences now with him going to school, of how he sometimes reacts in situations, and that he also learned on some of the outbursts from his older brother, because that is what he grew up with and that is what he saw. So now you have a special needs child that has these outbursts. Then you have a child that does not have special needs that is now mimicking these outbursts. And I don't think, if you break it down into all these little categories and you actually see how much this goes through the whole family and how much it impacts the whole family, you might have some comprehension of the struggles. But it's difficult to explain these struggles to someone that might not be going through it. And again, families that don't have special needs children also go through these struggles. I'm not going to take that away. It's very normal to have these little problems and stuff. But from a special needs perspective, with a child with special needs, it is a bit more. Here's another thing: your finances are impacted because it's therapy. Therapy isn't cheap. It's not cheap at all. And if you're lucky to have medical aid that covers it, then you can get that therapy. And it's the decision making of where do you cut costs to be able to provide that therapy for your child, and what do you need to take out. So that's more stress that is added to it. And I always thought that I would have the stress of worrying about rugby kids and cricket kids, and all these financial stresses, which is still coming, I'm sure, because he's doing all those sports. But then you have that extra aspect of you need that therapy. That your child needs that therapy to be able for you to learn how to handle things, as well as for them to be able to learn. And it's not something you can't. It's not something you can just throw away. So there's a lot of aspects that that range from that special needs, that root out into different aspects of your life. And then it's as well as relationships with other people. We've had friends that just ghosted. It was just too much. We couldn't go out to every event. We couldn't do this, and we stopped hearing from them. We're lucky to have a very supportive family, and that. Okay, I'll be back. Sorry, bathroom break. 1 second.
No problem. Cool. So I'm just going to go through some of the comments here. I think my mic is working very badly. How is the sound your side, guys? Let me know. Maybe I must take my mic off. Oops. Wrong camera. Let's just see how this mic is working. I think that's a
I can't hear you.
okay. Here we go.
There you go.
Ah, okay. There we go. I was just trying to get my sound a bit better because it's kind of it's ghosting. I don't know what you can hear, but some of the people can hear ghosting.
No, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I can hear ghosting. And I think, yeah, Nadia, this topic that you're talking about here, the mental health when it comes to special needs, we can actually go into our next topic here. You've basically just brought us into it.
Yes.
Let's go back to my comments here. Yeah, so special needs and mental health.
Yes. So I want to discuss it from 2 points of views: the mental health of the child itself, as well as the parent. So I'll start off with the child's mental health. There has been a link to adults with Asperger's to have a tendency to have more suicidal thoughts than a normal person. I actually hate that word, but for the reference, because of their struggles with social interaction, they already feel isolated, as I've mentioned earlier. That they can't approach. They want to, but they can't approach. So they're already isolated from the one point of view. But as soon as they're rejected by their peers because they're a bit different, that isolation grows. And there has been a link to depression and certain special needs diagnoses. And I know it's something that I probably shouldn't worry about now because it's more linked to older kids and adults. Actually, clear my throat. Sorry. But it's a concern for me now already, because let's look at bullying again. We already have cases of children being bullied in school. It's a reality. But the kids with special needs are prone to be bullied more because they have that difference already there. And some of them, as I mentioned, won't maybe understand that this is incorrect behavior and stuff like that. They just see social interaction. Someone is approaching them from a point of view, and they won't respond in the situation correctly. And it's stuff that I worry about now already, because even though he's turning 9 years old, I worry about his future, about how how society will accept him. That now I at least have, while he's still in our house and he's growing up, we have control over this, and we have control over his associations with people and his communication and stuff like that. But as soon as he gets older, I'm not going to be there the whole time to diffuse every situation and stuff like that. And it's going to be him that's going to have to deal with it himself. And these things worry me. I know it's still a long way to go until he's out of school and everything like that. But because the studies have showed, I'll send you a link to the study if you want to include it, that the depression rate and anxiety rate has risen with people with certain special needs because of the way that they are accepted in society. Well, actually, they're not accepted in society, if the correct terminology. And the effects of that are long-lasting. I mean, I myself, as I mentioned, I've been diagnosed with depression. And even though I can't explain it to someone, always how I feel and, how I'm seeing things from my point of view and stuff like that, I know today that I do not want any of my children to go through that. Because it's not something you wish upon someone. It's not something you want to live with, even though you have to. And I've already started thinking about ways to help with his mental health now, to help with the future, times that he has to meet with people and things like that. And the concern is that the school has also a responsibility to make sure that bullying and stuff like that is, not existing. But not all situations are handled correctly, and not all situations are taken further to be resolved. So we've had the experience where we did mention that he was being bullied at school, and it was not taken seriously. The excuse of boys will be boys was brought up, which I really do not like, because the innocence of that phrase has been taken away and replaced with excuses for bad behavior and things like that. And for me, for him, it showed that yes, we are fighting for him. We are trying to make sure he has a safe space, and he can go to school without any problems, to not add any stress or anxiety to his emotional state already. But I sometimes fear that schools do not take it as seriously. And it's not just about special needs kids, it's about all kids. That there needs to be serious intervention when cases do arise of bullying. Because it's not just special needs kids that can be prone to anxiety attacks and and depression and other mental illnesses. It's anybody can be affected by it. So by treating the symptoms now, and looking out for them and making sure that there's an understanding to social situations and social interactions, we can already build that foundation to open the door to approach conversations about this and things like that. Even though he didn't fully understand what a bully is, when we did find out about it, and he spoke to us about what happened, he had the understanding of this was wrong, because we spoke to him about it. Even though he didn't know the full intensity of the situation, he understood that something was not wrong. Something happened that wasn't correct. And by focusing on this now, can save you actually so much in the future. Because I think it can't be easy with teenagers. I don't even want to think about those years, and I have to go through it 3 times. But it's not something that I want to. I don't have a choice, obviously, but it's not something I wish upon anybody, to have a child that struggles with not just mental health mental health illnesses, but as well as that child having a special needs diagnosis, because that does complicate things, especially if you have a child that cannot express their emotions. So they can feel it, but they don't know how to put it into words. So if your child is going through depression or anxiety, they will not be able to tell you. You might pick up from maybe some visible symptoms and behaviors, but they won't be able to communicate it through to you. And it's a concern for me because those two are interlinked. And as I mentioned earlier, with the 4 categories of special needs, anxiety and depression falls under behavioral/emotional. So that is already, it's already there, it's already recognized. And having that still interlinked with another special needs category is crazy. I can just imagine what it is like. I can't. If there are any parents that have gone through this or are going through this, it would be great to know. But it's a problem that I'm afraid could add on to what we already have because of how society perceives it and because of how society treats it. That there's again, it's not just the stigma, but it's also the additions to the stigma that add on to that level. And it's not saying treat them in a special way, or go out of your way to make things different or easy. Just treat them as you would another person. That's the biggest thing. If you can treat someone with respect and kindness, then that is the first step, instead of the isolation and the judging and stuff like that. I was I don't want to say an art course in school. I wasn't popular. I was the kid that spent her lunch breaks in a library, buried in a book. I didn't do sport, so I wasn't the a known person in our grade. But there were still things that I was judged on, because I'm not hanging out with friends. I'd rather be hanging out with a book and stuff like that. And that's where the thing comes in again of respectful and being kind, and also parents teaching their children to react that way. It's so important, it's so vital to not just treat them with respect, but everybody. But I think that's something I feel has been lost with a certain generation, where that aspect of respect has dropped a lot. Manners have dropped a lot, and it's something I'm very adamant on. That's manners and please and thank you. All those things are very important to us. And if you start with the basics of teaching your children to respect everything, everybody, nature, and animals, people, you're already building a good foundation, so that when they do meet someone with special needs, they could actually, by it being a natural response, treat them with that same respect as you would anybody else. And it's again a society thing that we need to come together and understand it and work together to eradicate these types of problems that could be in the future.
Yeah, Annie, I think that my sound's so bad. I think that, in today's age, I think parenting has become, it's a very different ballgame from when I grew up and from when my parents grew up. There are so many dangers. And if you look at the way that a lot of children behave and the manners and the things that they're watching on TV and the way that they are copying people and the bullying and the level of abuse and alcohol abuse and drug abuse. And I'm a very positive person. I love life and all of that, but we got to be realistic and look at where things are. I think that society, the way it's going, it's very poisoned. And us as parents, we now have to take our children and try to teach them the right manners, the right respect, empathy, kindness, not bullying, how to cope with bullying, mental health. I mean, mental health issues are on the rise throughout society, throughout the whole world. And we've got a very difficult task, so this goes beyond special needs. It goes to racism and tolerance of, people's identity, of their gender and sexual preference. And there's so much stuff.
Different topic.
Yeah, well, I've done a topic on racism. I've done it on a whole stack of stuff. In fact, guess who's also going to be on my channel? Manny from 2 Kids and a Dad. So we're going to talk about gay parenting. Yeah, it's going to be probably in April. So, I try to cover all of these topics. And for me, mental health is a huge, huge thing.
I agree with you when you say that society has been poisoned. Times have changed. Even me, I grew up in the 90s, and childhood in the 90s to childhood now is very different. And it's not always recognized, in the 90s childhood, and you can't always raise your child as you were raised because times have changed, and you don't also want them to be the different kid because
there's just so much stuff that comes into it.
My husband put up a sign on the window. Apparently I'm echoing.
Oh, I'm echoing.
Okay, I didn't even hear anything.
Well, we're echoing.
Okay, I come now. Sorry. But the thing is, yes, we can't change everybody. It's the reality. We can't change everybody, but it can start with one household. It can start with that one household that tries. I'm not saying do it from the first time, but try, put in that effort. And with that, we can build. And it's wishful thinking that we could maybe get to that stage again where we used to be with our childhoods and everything like that. And yes, society has been poisoned. There's so many influences from different aspects of life.
We're nearly done, sweetheart. We're nearly done. We're going to be done quick.
No, she wants to take my phone stand. My camera rings. No.
Oh. Okay. Well, look, we're nearly done. There's just, I wanted to bring up another program that I watched that you might find this very interesting. And it's called Love on the Spectrum. And it's a series, but it's a real life thing. And what they do is they follow, it's young adults. So I think they're in their early 20s or so. And it's people on the spectrum that are ready to form relationships. And then what happens is specialists come in and they are specialists on people on the spectrum and how to, help them form relationships with other people. And then they hook them up with other people on the spectrum. And it's absolutely brilliant. And it's a big learning experience for what people on the spectrum start facing when they start dating, and some of the anxieties and the fears that they have, the tics that they have, that whole thing where they can't read body language, and they've got the coach that coaches them, and they do all these sessions where they pretend to I can't think what it is, but they basically practice on each other what you're going to say in a date, and how do you sit down, what do you say to the person, how do you approach the first kiss, all the stuff that us normal, like I say, I don't like using the word normal, non-special needs people take for granted. So that it's a really beautiful thing for anybody that wants to watch. I found it so intriguing.
But it's actually good that there are more and more shows that are coming up that highlight this, and it helps to get different perspectives from what life is like on the other side, especially if it's adults that share their stories, because a child might not be able to share how they're feeling and their experiences, but hearing it from an adult from a special needs perspective gives you a good insight into what their life is like. And it also again creates awareness. It creates awareness that we're here. I'm talking now from a special needs perspective, that we're here, and you see us. We're not different. Again, we just see things differently, and we react things differently. We think differently, and I think it helps a lot of people to also understand without needing to always interact. Yeah, she's moving things around here. Sorry. Yes. So like you mentioned that some people might.
Oh dear.
I think he's listening in, so he can hear her in the room.
But you can hear the echoes.
And, so it also gives the people the opportunity that might be too afraid to approach someone and ask them questions, to get information and to get answers by watching a show with someone that is talking about their lives. So it's another aspect that we can add on to spreading the awareness, and also not maybe creating awkward situations between the asker and then the person that is being asked. So it's actually very great. I have Atypical on my watch list. I do need to watch that still.
Oh, it's beautiful.
When I get a chance. And I haven't heard of Speechless. That is one I'll also add and have a look. Because it's also in the sense of, because we've been living this, this life, sometimes watching and hearing about other people's struggles and their perspectives from that space, even though I'm not the one with the special needs, I can relate, because I can understand to a certain extent, because my son is going through it or has been going through that. And it kind of also makes you feel part of not their journey, but it also reaffirms that what you're doing is the correct thing, because there are examples of children that grew up with special needs that adapted to society no matter what the struggles were, and they can live a pretty normal life. I'm normal again, but a pretty standard life. And there are those cases of there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that what you're going through now is the reward that you reap in the future. And I think, again, it's another a good reason to have these kind of shows, because it shows you that there's a good side to special needs as well, and not just the negative side that everybody always seems to focus on.
Definitely. And just on Atypical, it doesn't just focus on the boy. It's the whole family. So you see the effect that it has on the mom and the struggle she has, and the father, and I think there's a sister, if I remember correctly. So you'll absolutely love it. It is a beautiful, heartwarming, funny, very funny as well. A gorgeous show.
Cool. I'll definitely.
So anyway, I think that your daughter has decided that she's had enough. And I've actually at 12 o'clock, I've got a call. So thank you so much. I really have enjoyed this. I have learned so much. I've been riveted by everything you've said. I've made notes, and I'm going to be creating a blog post to go along with this video. It's probably going to take me a while to write out, because there's so much information. But for everybody, there's have you got more notes?
Readable notes.
Yes, please do that. Please do that. And then, also, I need the link to that study on anxiety and depression linked to special needs. And I'll be adding links to the series and links to the books that I've discussed as well. And if there's any other resources, Annie, that you want to add, you can just pop it to me in an email. And I think this has been fantastic. And just a bit of feedback, if I go look at all the comments that have been added to this video, I think this has been hands down. I mean, I've just seen people popping up and this and bing, bing. And so I probably looked quite distracted, but it's been amazing. And it's been lovely seeing all the comments, which I haven't even been able to read through them all, because as I try to look at the comments, they're just going up like this. So it's very exciting. Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if they're coming on my page or your page, because I can't distinguish between which page they're coming. Not the private chat. The on Facebook, on the pages.
I'll have a look at your side. I'll check all the platforms. It's fine. I'll have some time to respond to everybody. And I really appreciate the opportunity and to giving me the time today to highlight a bit more on special needs and the life around it, struggles. And I really hope that, if there are parents that are going through this, that they, heard some information that could help them, and also set them on the path that they need to go if there were any uncertainties. And also people that do not have experience with special needs, I really hope that it also enlightened and, brought out some information surrounding life on the spectrum, or whatever other special needs there are that people deal with. And I really hope that it also puts special needs in a light that it's not all bad. It's difficult, but it's not all bad. And it's an interesting life. It's a difficult life, but it's definitely still life full of joy and struggles, failures, wins, and everything else. Just on a different side of the wall.
Awesome. And yeah, thank you for joining, because you've added so much value. It's been absolutely amazing.
And also, if there is anybody that would like to speak to me, just to get any more advice, they're more than welcome to send me a message on my Facebook page. I would really put some time out to help. If anybody has got any advice or needs direction or anything like that, I'll help as much as I can with the information that I have. So please feel free to pop in a message if you need to.
Perfect. Great. And then there's just one last thing I have to do, and that's choose a winner. So Nadia, Janine, Xavier, I've chosen you as the winner of the 250 Rand Takealot voucher. I'm not sure if you're watching on Annie's page or on my page, but if you can just pop over onto Kaboutjie Facebook page and inbox me, and then I'll get into contact with you so I can send you a voucher. I'll probably only reply in a couple of hours because I'm going into mommy mode in a second. But if you don't find my Facebook page, I'll come and find you later. Cool. Awesome. Everybody have a fantastic Friday, and we'll catch up with you soon. Bye.